Okay, good day. So our topic today is epidemiology, data sources, and study design. So we will discuss health-related and non-health-related data sources and the three types of study design. Okay, so next slide. So we have covered the definitions, key terms, approaches to epidemiology. So today we were going to turn to the sources of epidemiologists use and the methods they use to collect data for a study. So how are the data from all of these sources collected? Here are some of the methods and examples for each of the main source of data. So please note that this list is by no means exhaustive. So we often collect data from individual persons using questionnaires and survey. So in the provided or task to you in our laboratory, you were asked to come up with a survey questionnaire, and using that survey questionnaire, you floated the questionnaire in individual persons. So another source can also be an environment. So for environment, so samples from the river example, like river, water, soils, and sensors for environmental changes. So as mentioned, an epidemiologist might collect samples from this body of waters, like river, water, and even in soils to test for a certain contaminant. So what are the example for this? It can be to check chemical pollutants or to determine air quality ratings. Okay, let us also consider healthcare providers as another source. So healthcare providers collect considerable amounts of data during the course and daily clinical practice. So we have the method here, notification to health department if cases of certain diseases are observed. An example is to report cases of meningitis to health department. So aside from that, we also can get our data from non-health related sources such as financial and legal records. So they are gathered and being reviewed from sales, court proceedings, arrests, and so forth. And examples of non-health related sources that provide key data are, let's say, cigarette sales and number of intoxicated driver arrest. Okay. So in this slide, we will also be considering conducting a study. So after data are collected, so whatever will be the source that you will be considering in your study, so hypothesis will be tested. So trends can be also be evaluated and the factors between groups are being compared. So by conducting the study, what will the epidemiologists do? So epidemiologists are attempting to discover if a causal associations exist between an exposure or risk factor and a health outcome by making comparisons of factors between groups. So for example, epidemiologists frequently compare data regarding ill person with those of well persons. Or epidemiologists also might compare data for a group of persons exposed to a risk factors with those who were not exposed to see if the outcomes are different for each group. So I also asked you in your research requirement to come up with possible determinants of your main variables. Okay, let's move. Okay, so to test now the hypothesis. So what is hypothesis? This is educated the guess. This is commonly the statement whether there is a significant difference or there's no significant difference, if there is significant relationships and all others. So these were already discussed or it will be discussed in our laboratory. So now let us proceed to this one. To test hypothesis, so we have actually 3 study designs that are commonly used. So one is cross-sectional study, and then cohort study, and case control approach. So let us consider the first one, the cross-sectional study. So this is similar to a survey that it provides a snapshot of the population at a point in time. This is the usual, really the usual or common method being used. So in this study, epidemiologists define the target population, then collects data from the populations or a subset of a population at a one specific point in time, and participants are selected regardless of their exposure or disease status. So it's actually quite different from what you were asked to do in the research, because of course it's very also dangerous to be exposed in hospitals or medical clinics now that we have this pandemic. So anyway, I still asked you to come up with a problems related to health. And let's move to the next one. So we have here the study design of cohort study. So how is this different now with our cross-sectional? So in a cohort study, epidemiologist selects a population, then categorizes each person by whether he or she was exposed to one or more risk factors of interest. So participants are followed over time to determine if a disease or conditions develop. So let's move to the next slide. For the case control design, so this is another type. We compared one group who has a disease or health conditions. We referred it to be the case patients with the group that does not. So we also referred that as the control subjects. So the epidemiologist then works backward from the illness or health conditions. Case patients and controlled subjects are compared for the presence or absence of one or more specific exposures or risk factors. Okay, so we have here so the knowledge check. So we are going, of course, to answer the problem. Which of the following are examples of a health-related sources of data collection? So letter A, intoxicated driver arrest. Letter B, electronic health records. Letter C, measurement of toxins in a river. Letter D, medical board actions against a physicians. What do you think is the answer for this item? So which are health-related sourced? So do you think letter A, intoxicated driver arrest? So this is already provided in our example. And if you can still recall, this is the example given for non-health related. How about electronic health record? So obviously, from the word itself, this is health record. So it is a health-related source. And then for letter C, measurement of toxins in a river. So for letter C, we know for sure that if we have this toxins, again, it is possible that we can get some sort of health issues here. So letter B and letter C are the correct answer for this item. Well, for letter D, medical board action against a physical physician, so it's obviously not a health-related source. Okay, so the answers as mentioned are letter B and letter C. So let us move to another knowledge check. So what we are going to do here is to match each study with the correct definition. So the number one, if we are comparing subjects with diabetics with those without diabetics, so here, what do you think is the answers? I'll give you still time to think about it. So do you think it's a cross-sectional, cohort, or case control? Okay, the answer is case control. Well, for number two, a study of women aged 50 to 60 years old in community located to a nuclear power facility. So do you think this is cross-sectional, cohort, or case control? Okay, so it is a cross-sectional. And for number three, subjects who have received nutritional counseling and who have exercised twice a week are compared with subjects who have not. So this is a cohort study. So we have the following answer. So for case control, for number one, so we are comparing from diabetes without diabetes. So the case here are the case of patients with and without diabetes. Now for number two, a study of women aged 50 to 60 years old. So it can be a cross-sectional study because we just considered a particular what do you call this? We subjects, and we can explore the women age 50 to 60 years old. Well, for number three, it's considered cohort. So we will be considering those with and without exercise, or those who have exercised and who have not exercised twice a week. Okay, so on next meeting or on next lecture, we will also be considering investigating an outbreak. So thank you for listening. And our task after this is also to consider other more examples or other definitions for us to better understand the difference in the three designs that is shared or that is explained to us today. Okay, so thank you for watching.